Now, before we begin the review of the xTOOL F1 Ultra, I just wanted to inform you that the machine I received is a beta machine, basically a prototype, and the software that I'm using is also beta. I was informed by xTOOL that this is very, very close to the production version. So you may see some scratches, dings, and stuff on my unit. That's again because it is a prototype, so don't judge. Now, given that I had very limited resources and everything is basically beta prototype stage, I had very little to go on. So I did lots and lots of testing. I have over 100 hours worth of testing. So if you are more geared towards watching a review where someone's sitting in front of the machine and just talking for 10 minutes and barely showing anything, then this review is not for you. Or if you'd rather watch a 10-minute video where someone's just showing samples and not giving you any of the information on how to do it on your own, then this video is not for you either. I do realize that this video is going to be long, so I'll divide it up into chapters so it'll be easy for you to reference. Now let's continue on to show you how I did all of this. xTOOL reached out to me to see if I wanted to take a look at their new xTOOL F1 Ultra. I said, sure, why not? I'm a plus one-legged man, so I kind of fit the bill. And of course, there are links below to purchase if you so choose. Now let's go over some of the xTOOL F1 Ultra features. It has the world's first 20-watt fiber and 20-watt diode 455nm laser. It has a build volume of 220 by 220. It does deep metal engraving. It has autofocus, a built-in camera. It's fully enclosed with an exhaust. It has Wi-Fi, flame detection, and has the optional conveyor for batch processing. Stay till the end of the video to see how that works. As you can see, it's definitely a lot bigger than the original F1. So let's lift up the lid and take a look. Of course, before you begin, you're going to want to remove the lens cap. As we look underneath, you'll see a light bar and the camera, and then right there next to the lens is your autofocus. You can do the autofocusing within the software, and you can adjust it manually on the display. On the back of the machine, we have a series of ports. This one's the tube fitting for the fire safety set. Then we have the power port. Next, we have the lockout key. The machine's not operational unless you have this in. So if you want little hands to stay away, take this key away. This is the port for the fire safety set. Next, we have the smoke purifier port. And next to that, we have the foot pedal switch. But I'm going to use the little clicky single key one instead. Next, we're going to plug in our display. You'll notice that it's keyed, so it can only fit in one way. If it doesn't fit, don't force it. On the top, we have our big red emergency stop. Then we have our USB-C port. We got two extension ports for the conveyor rotary, and we have a flash drive support, and plus the power on button. Now that we have everything plugged in, let's go ahead and power it on and see what it does on the first boot up. Right now, you can see that's a nice vibrant display. Pretty cool animation. And it's doing a firmware updating. Now this is definitely going to take a few minutes, and this doesn't come on again unless you're actually doing a firmware update. So again, this could take a few minutes, and so what we'll do is set this off to the side and just wait for our regular interface to come up. We are all booted up, and this is the home screen. You have your device name, you have the firmware version, and since it's touchscreen, you can see that no files yet, and we do not have a flash drive plugged in, so it doesn't show anything. Big green button is to start your job, and then you could manually adjust up and down for your focus. And you notice below the down arrow is a little square button, and that is your framing button. That way you can frame out your job rather easily, and you can also click on the display to see your last job. Pretty nice touchscreen. Now before we begin, I am using a purification system, and I'm always wearing safety goggles. You can see that these are certified safety goggles, and in the reflection you can see that I'm always wearing them. So if you see the lid up, I am wearing proper eye protection. One thing I'm always asked, what are your settings? Well, just do a test grid. xTOOL makes it very easy to make your own test grid, and I can do it within just a minute or two. You will see that I'm doing several test grids. And certain materials will produce basically musical notes. Let's take a listen. Now, it's all based on speed, power, and frequency. xTOOL currently doesn't have frequency, but speed and power on certain materials will produce different types of notes. Typically, the faster the speed and higher the power will produce a more crisp, higher note that you can actually hear. So this was running pretty fast and high power. So let's take a listen to hear what it's doing. Just something fun. And people have actually made some musical melodies doing this, believe it or not. Now this is actually steel, and no, that didn't cut through on the left. That is from my plasma cutter. This is a scrap piece of steel that I had laying around, and you don't need to make your test grids that big because it's still going to yield the same looking results. So as you can see, I did get some colors out of it, and that's pretty darn cool to see. Here we have some stainless steel. As you can see, it's very nice and crisp, and you could get some little color shadings, so to speak. And again, you could just run a whole different variety of power and speed on here to get the type of shading that you are looking for. Remember, the colors is just oxidizing the surface. So think about it as taking a torch to metal, and you see all that rainbow of colors. It's the same thing. Now this weird pitching one is titanium. Yes, this is one of my few pieces of titanium that I have floating in my garage. You can see on the left here, it kind of really like bubbled up the metal with the higher power. And but definitely does engrave really nicely though. I mean, I'm surprised on how nice this engraves. Look how nice and crisp the small lettering is. And it can produce some real nice colors. So I don't really use this much except for sampling on my lasers, but you can see it does do a real nice job on titanium. Well, copper was a disappointment for the sound category, but as you can see, it definitely did some nice results. Some color variance, but more of an oxidation effect. It definitely had some nice burn looks to it, but yes, you can engrave copper as well. Notice with the higher power, it's nice and crisp with the copper look. So there you go. Yes, I do run test grids on everything. And dog tags as well. I mean, why not? You might as well at least see what shade or engraving that you want on a dog tag. It's that easy. And we're going to go ahead and wipe this off and take a look. And now it can be hot, so just always beware. Again, it all goes about what type of shade that you were looking for. So having a test grid to go off of, even for this, is great. Because actually this is pretty hefty. I don't think it's steel at all. You can't use a magnet on it. And that is real speed. As you can see, it's definitely very quick. So doing some testing is rather beneficial. This is a rose gold, I guess it's a paper or a book marker. So you could just go ahead and do all your test grids on here. It just makes sense. Do test grids. Test grids always have some type of sacrificial, material that you can do it. And on the back was some type of stainless steel. And that leads to today's video sponsor, PCBWay. Are you looking for a PCB manufacturer? Are you looking for rigid, flexible PCBs? Are you looking for them to assemble them for you? Well, they can. And they also offer other services such as 3D printing, injected molding, and CNC. Heck, they even have a community section where you could buy a project and assemble it on your own. If you're looking for any of these services, please reach out to PCBWay. I would like to thank PCBWay for sponsoring today's video. Now I'm going to do a coin, and this coin is going to run at 100% power at 400 speed, 10 passes, 300 centimeter spacing. And you will notice that I am running two different vectors. This was actually two different files, but I have them both on the same layer. That's because I just want them both to be ran at the same time. So if you're doing different shading and stuff, that you could do these vector files on different layers. This is how it goes at regular speed. Again, power is at 100, speed is at 400 millimeters per second. And you can already see that after just a few passes, we are getting some pretty deep engraving. And this is, of course, the IR part of it. Now, I did about 20 passes in total, and you can definitely see how deep this is etching. And then when it's all said and done, you can do a cleanup pass, which is usually lower power and faster speed. 20% power at 4,000 millimeters per second. And you can see that it's actually cleaning up the material as it's going. And that is pretty darn impressive. Typically, you don't want to do 2 or 3 cleanup passes just to make sure that it all goes through. And each pass, you'll see it gets a little bit brighter as it goes. And typically on other software, this is all done on XCS. There is what's called a frequency, and this doesn't have frequency yet. And I was informed by xTOOL that they are working on it for a release. And let's go ahead and take a closer look to see how it came out. Yep, it is pretty darn crisp, and you can see that we got a pretty decent engraving out of it. Now this took about 40 minutes from beginning to end, and this was actually on the back was just 3 passes with a cleanup. So you could still actually just get an engraving just in a few minutes if you so choose. But I really like the the black and with the kind of like a brass look to it. Now this is a cheaper coin, and again, you want to make sure it's not hot before you pick it up. I did just as many passes, but you can see even after my cleanup pass, it just doesn't look right. That's because this is plated. The material doesn't go all the way through. You can see that the surface was heating up and the plating wore off too. Definitely has a unique look, but just be wary. The coin on the right is laser compatible, material all the way through. One on the left is plated. I noticed on xTOOL's projects that you have the emboss for a lion head. So let's go ahead and open it within xTOOL projects, and it will launch the project file. It's also known as 3D engraving or 2.5 engraving for EasyCAD. When the project opens, you have 3 files. The first one is your cleanup pass, it looks like, and the second one is just a easy set panel for the IR, and that's 100 and 1000, and the other one is 100 and 750. I'm going to actually just copy this and bring it over to my other one here because I already have it focused, and I'm going to change the way it is. 256, 100, 400, 115, turn on descent, and it's going to be 1 pass every 2 layers. It'll drop the laser down 0.01, and that is on the Z. I always enjoy watching the cleanup passes. So this is 20% power, 4,000 millimeters per second, and we're going to do 3 passes. You can actually see it pushing the material away, and at every pass it just gets cleaner and cleaner. 3 passes is more than enough usually to do your cleanup pass, but it's amazing how more vibrant it becomes just doing these faster passes. And as soon as this is done, we're going to take a closer look. And let's go ahead and pick it up, make sure it's not hot. I did let it cool down a little bit before I did a cleanup pass, but look at that. Yes, that is a real nice 3D engrave. And again, what makes this possible is that you have that Z descent. So basically after every 2 layers, it drops the Z down 0.01 to keep the laser in focus, and it is doing 256 layers. This took about 2 hours and 35 minutes to complete. Not too bad. But I'm very impressed on how clean this looks. This is, of course, a brass solid coin. If you were to do it on that cheaper coin, you would not get the results that you see here. So whenever you do it, make sure you have a full brass coin. Go big or go home. So now we're going to do the same thing, a dragon head on a slate coaster, 256, 100, speed is 2050 millimeters per second, 15-degree angle. You're going to have the descent on, but this time it's going to be on every layer. It's going to be at 0.01. Now let's lift it and take a look. And we're going to actually dust this off and wet it down. This way we can actually see the engraving a lot better. Wow, this is impressive. I mean, look at this. I mean, it's almost like you're at an archaeological dig or something. This just looks really, really amazing. I figured now would be a good time to take a break and talk about cleaning your laser. One day you could be venting outside and it's windy and it's pushing against the exhaust and it's not working as effectively as it should. Thus, you're getting a lot more debris inside your laser. Now, the way I clean my lasers may be different than you, but I start out by unplugging it and vacuuming as best as I can. Then I use a fluffy Swiffer duster for all the surfaces the vacuum has missed, baby wipes for all the little corners and crevices, and spray away glass cleaner for all the surfaces that are not with electronics on them. And you are going to want to move this cover up and down. And you would also most likely have to adjust the height up and down as well to get everywhere that you need. It is kind of a pain to get everywhere, but it's well worth it. And definitely make sure that you clean your lens as well, because you want those optics to stay nice and clean. As mentioned in the user manual, the exhaust is easy to disassemble and clean as well. Also, cleaning the hose periodically will also ensure proper airflow. So if you notice that your Ultra is getting a little bit dirty, take time to clean it. That way it lasts nice and long. Well, speaking of rock coasters, this is at 50% power, 600 millimeters per second at 300 centimeters line spacing. And a blue laser. Yep, this is one of my daughter's bestsellers I made. It's a husband rock coaster. As you can see, it does it really, really good. Nice crisp lines, and it doesn't clog up your machine nearly as much as the other one. But it's nice and crisp and clean, and it only takes about 2.5 minutes. And I've always wanted to do a Zippo. I actually bought like a dozen of these about a year and a half ago on a Black Friday sale and never got around to it, but now I have. Found this file on Etsy, I'll link it below. Power is 52, speed is 50, passes 2, and lines per centimeter 300. Each each side took about 32 minutes, and this was the results. You can definitely feel the texture, and if you turn it a certain way, you can see the engraving. And it's a true Zippo lighter. I think I only paid like 12 bucks each for these. Definitely a good deal, and you can probably sell these, well, probably 25, 30 bucks each. Yep, not bad. And I really like the texture to it, because Zippos are pretty slick. And by having the engraving on there, you can feel it and see it. So add some character to it, sell them, and I'm sure they'll be a good seller for you, because I sold these right after I engraved them. Made 60 bucks, well, after everything, about 60 bucks. And we got some wooden coasters, 80% on the blue laser, and we have 600 millimeters per second at 300 centimeters. Yep, came out rather nice, and this only took about 2.5 minutes to complete. And just in case, if you want, you could actually repeat this cycle pretty darn easily. So let's remove the completed project, put the new one in here, line up the grain, because I always have my grain on this side. Then we're going to go ahead and close it, and we're going to tap our button twice, and that'll execute the job. Pretty darn easy. And the display will show you what it's working on. No worries, 2A community. I got your PMags covered right here. This is my sacrificial testing piece. As you see, I'm running out of room, so I did these little test squares here, and I was decided on a more vibrant contrast. So it's definitely going to be the square in the upper left. And those settings are for the IR, 10 on power, 4,000 on speed, 6 passes, and 300 lines per centimeter, bi-directional. And this file will be listed down below. I found it on Etsy. So you'll see the first pass is pretty good, but after every pass it gets more and more vibrant. So I chose 6 passes because after the 6th pass I didn't notice any difference. So you can see that it definitely, on the time lapse, it definitely cleaned up. And I'm just trying to measure it to get it nice and centered. A jig would definitely help you with this. So maybe I'll have to make one for this. But as you can see, 6 passes is more than enough. I just love engraving the polymers. I mean, look at the contrast. This is permanent and it is just vibrant. It's not going anywhere. You can read everything. It just is amazing. And if you're feel adventurous, you could see that it could do different shades. That you could do different types of shading for different wording if you so choose. Looks like I got pretty darn close here. But yeah, PMag, top sellers. I mean, people love them personalized. And like I said, xTOOL is looking at frequencies, so the update will actually give you even more of a color range on these polymers. So be in tune for that. Next, we have a cutting board. This is bamboo, 80% on blue power, and you have 600 for speed and 300 lines per centimeter. Now, bamboo could be hit or miss depending on the grain, but I think this came out rather sharp. So, yep, let's cook. This is another good seller at my daughter's market. So she always sells a couple of them and some nice profits. Again, I found this file on Etsy. I'll go ahead and link it down below. I think it's a good seller. So, hey, again, it's all about making some money. I'm for it. Now, I tend to find Apple products overrated. Hence, Apple is overrated. And it's 25% on power, 2000 on your speed. And we're going to do 2 passes at 300 lines per centimeter. And you can see how nice and crisp this is. I suggest having the lid closed and properly ventilated because it does stink pretty much. Not as much as Apple products, but it does stink. Yeah. I know I'm going to get some grief into the comments below, but it is overrated, see? But yes, you could make a small fortune just by personalizing, this type of white plastic. It is, and see, that was real time, very fast. And here's a rose gold pendant, 70% on IR, 150 millimeters per second, and lines per centimeter is 300. I went with higher contrast, and I think it definitely paid off. This was super hot, so I didn't pick it up. So again, when you burn for a long time, it is going to heat up a lot. And I did basically the same settings for this little keychain. Yes, our Explorer hit 235,000 miles. It's a 2013. So it's been a trooper. So I figured I'd make a keychain for this. Again, it was super hot, so let it cool off, and this was after I wiped it down. Pretty nice. And as promised, we had the conveyor system here. Oh, this is a lot bigger than I thought it would be. No pun intended, of course. But yeah, so one-legged guy on a treadmill? No, it's a good thing it's a conveyor belt. And here's the instruction manual. It basically just tells you how to put it to the F1 Ultra and how to fasten it. And we have a USB cable and some aluminum brackets. So let's go ahead and get this mounted. First, we're going to take this bracket and we're going to secure it to these 2 screws. I took the foam because it says you put it upside down, and I use that to place the conveyor upside down on top of the phone, so not to scratch it. And we're going to start one screw and then secure the other and tighten down the other. And make sure it's nice and secure. Flip it over. And you're going to want to kind of lift it up here if you have an uneven surface and fasten these 2 screws down. And I used 2 little tags as levelers. You're going to plug the USB on the back, and you're going to plug the other one on the side into expansion port. Now in XCS, you're going to choose conveyor batch because we're going to just do a batch. We're not going to do the large, and we're going to hit refresh here. And we're going to also do the thickness and for the auto measuring here. And then we're going to hit refresh so we can see our image. Now we're going to go ahead and pick a file. And we're going to use a PNG because SVG just didn't work for me for some reason. Brought it up to xTOOL, so we'll see. I'm going to resize it and bring it into my little card here. And then we're going to choose some settings. I'm going to go with the IR. And I'm just winging it here. So we're going to do 5,000 or 500 and image. Or no, 550, 1000 DPI, 1 and Jarvis bidirectional. That sounds good. Let's roll with it. So now we're going to frame our sample material, and that looks good. You can see how it says in the upper right how to do it. We're going to hit save, and then we are going to basically process our job. It's pretty darn simple. Then we lay everything on it in a scattered format here, and you can actually see how it's just almost hitting every one of them. So I decided to line them up by row here, but you can see some of them are going upside down and some are going right side up. And I noticed that if I lay them out neatly, it skips a lot less of them. And well, here we go. I cleaned them off a little bit and almost all of them came out really, really nice. Most are centered within, I mean, very accurate, very accurate. And of course I righted these all one way. Now here's the problem is you saw it was just random on here and doesn't know if it's one way or the other. So I did bring this to xTOOL's attention. Maybe that they will have something in the future to say, okay, this is all going one way. But there is also two that kind of got messed up. So you'll see on the screen here, the one on the far left was just off a little bit, and it says, oh, you know what? I can still scrunch it on here. And that's the one right there in the middle that kind of got pushed to the left a little bit. So we had two of them that was off the camera a little bit and said, I'm going to still force it in there, so to speak. So I ran another batch job with some keychains. So these have a kind of like a positioning thing where you see the keychain loop. So I wanted to see how it did with reversing the image on here. So we're going to let it run a few courses here and see what happens. And you'll notice that I positioned them all kind of weird, and I just wanted to see how well it positioned the Ford logo in the center. I can't emphasize enough about having proper ventilation and wearing eye protection, especially when the laser is exposed. You'll notice that I'm keeping my hands well far away from the laser. It may be noted here that you want this shield to be down as far as possible to your material, and you will still need to wear eye protection. Now, I did not get eye protection with this kit, so hopefully xTOOL does provide it for you. Now, again, you want to make sure that you are being safe and other people around you are safe as well. Now, all of these did go in this orientation, and the engravings look really nice. Now, this is a keychain. Now, for you, if I flip it this way or this way, which is the correct way? I really don't know. Do I just flip it and that's the way it is or not? Because all of them are the same way. I could just flip it, and is that the right way? I don't know. Or do I turn it? I mean, well, it is a keychain. To me, it doesn't really matter, and all of them are like that. So tell me, how would you think that these should be placed? There's only one that came out a little bit off center here, but not too bad. I think all the engravings definitely came out really nice though. So let's continue on. Now, I did not cover this, but I'm going to just give you a brief glimpse. This is how hot this laser can get. This is just a standard little dog tag, and it did actually burn through at the highest setting. So yes, it can cut through thin material. However, again, the thin material will warp on you, and it gets super hot. So cutting through thin material, capable, but effective, not really. So again, be mindful of the thickness of materials with the power that you're running through it. Now let's go over some of the pluses and the minuses. Well, I definitely love the fact that this has a 20-watt fiber laser and 20-watt diode. It has autofocusing, the built-in camera, and it's fully enclosed with an exhaust, and it has that optional conveyor. And XCS definitely makes it very simple to use. Now let's talk about some of the negatives. Well, XCS is simple to use. It's definitely missing some features. Like, I like to see that per rotation that you have different hatch options. Also, I like to see frequency built in. And also, I'd like to make sure that that Z descent is built in for every type of engraving. So right now it's only done for embossing. I like to see that on the engraving option as well. That way it will keep your laser in focus as it's going in deeper into the material. I think that's very important. Now again, all this is in beta, and xTOOL did report back to me that frequency is definitely coming, and it hopefully will be on the production release. Now that's some awesome news. Now this is the cost factor. Now I want you to look at it this way. Comparable product doesn't exist, and if you're looking for a gavel laser IR combo, 2-watt, 10-watt combo is just over $2,000. So you're getting definitely your money's worth with this. I know it seems a little high in price, but you're getting a lot of machine for the dollar. Hopefully I've given you enough information if this machine is right for you. Now there is an affiliate link down below. I appreciate it if you use that. It'll definitely support me and my work and help me purchase the materials that are needed to keep this going. I really appreciate you tuning in to Tripod's Garage. Please have a wonderful day, evening, or weekend, or whenever you decide to watch this video. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll catch you the next time on Tripod's Garage.